I had been talking for a while with a few different people about a community orchard on the island. Mainly it was Rebecca Gilbert and Jamie O'Gorman and I who dreamed of something like that. We're looking at using agroforestry practices like alley cropping, keyline swales, and subsoil plowing to plant perennials in a mixed system in rows on contour. So this is a rough sketch of the keyline design on this property. Off the key point, all the rows run parallel to that keyline. From this keyline map, I got this map, which shows these circles are all the trees, and we're looking at starting up top of the hill with bigger chestnuts, persimmons, mulberries. As you get down towards the bottom, the smaller fruit trees mixed with fruiting shrubs beneath. And this little wet spot down here is going to be a pawpaw orchard mixed with elderberries and aronia. And throughout the whole system, there's nitrogen-fixing shrubs that are the fertility shrubs. So this agroforestry, permaculture, perennial cropping systems, there's a lot more of your own observation involved. We've kind of been taught to just look for answers out of our pocket or go seek a corporation or company to buy a product. If we're loading on the fertilizer, spraying them with all sorts of things to control pests and disease, all those things we're buying from a corporation, and they're making money on us, and we're addicted. It's like being a drug addict, and we're breeding plants to be reliant on chemical fertilizer and herbicide instead of breeding them to be for our climate and for our local ecosystem. And what we're trying to do is look at using the right varieties of these plants for our biome. We're looking at mimicking nature. People call them food forests. There's a lot of names. I got into it from foraging. These are actually all hazelnuts. Wow. Wow. Really big cluster there. I think this plant is an example of a strong, resilient plant that produces crops. If we plant these crops as farmers and focus on the crops that naturally grow here and are drought tolerant and disease resistant, we could grow with no pesticides, no herbicides. We could grow organically. There's no chemical fertilizer here. And it goes and goes and goes, just like this ecosystem has been going for thousands of years. I see the future of farming headed towards more perennial crops and crops that they naturally grow here. Those are some beautiful American hazelnuts. They fall right out. This is when they're green. We've gotten so far disconnected from our planet. If you are interacting with your ecosystem, you will know that you are a part of it. As modern day humans with a lot of technology, I think it might be safe to say that it's smart for our sanity to step back and become closer with our plants and our animals that grow here and learn about them and nourish our bodies with the food from the land. And I think when you're doing that, there's no doubt in that we have a specific role or a role on our planet, and that is to cultivate the Garden of Eden and using the patterns of nature, design our lives around that and grow our food using patterns that nature shows us. Hey, sheep. We're rotating the animals in small areas every day. The benefit of grazing is it doesn't take any fossil fuels. There's no oil involved. Grazing also introduces poop and organic matter onto the ground and inoculates it. And the paddies are home to a lot of organisms like worms and pill bugs, which will break down the roots. Every time the sheep eats the grass, that root dies under the ground and becomes organic matter, which creates deeper, more fertile soils. Animals love to be where there's shade, so under the trees, and they will lay or rest under the trees ruminating and pooping, and all that fertilizer goes right to the tree, and those are our crops. You ready, sheep? Come on, sheep. Whoa! Then it closes back up. They're ready for fresh grass. They love fresh grass, and that's all they should be eating. It takes me probably about 30 minutes each morning and 30 minutes each night to move the herd. It takes a lot of effort, but it's worth it. And if done right, and if you're rotating your animals, you can increase the fertility and the productivity of your land. The first thing we did was observe that there's 2 drainage ditches down the middle of the field that catch the runoff from the field above and bring it to the pond. We wanted to find a key point and a key line, which is most likely the wet spot of the property. And so we identified that line, and with a laser level, we got the contours of that one line. And then we plowed parallel uphill and parallel downhill with a subsoil plow. So what it is a shank that goes deep in the ground and decompacts and allows water to get in, almost like a mini terrace. So you do that on your whole field, so when there's water, instead of running off, it will seep into all the channels. We used a 2-bottom plow to flip the sod over and make a swale. So that's a ditch and a mound. The purpose of the swales are for water that's running off downhill to get caught in the ditch and infiltrate deep into the soil, so the trees can use that to get really tall. After we cut the swales, we started planting the trees right into the swales, and we used wood chips to mulch around each plant. And the trees are either planted below the mound or in the ditch. It's a 3-story growing system, so we have a canopy. Instead of just having a ground layer, we're putting structure into our land, and we're growing trees that go up to maybe 100 feet tall. For example, the chestnuts or pecan trees. And then below that are fruit trees like pawpaw, persimmon, mulberry, pears, apples, cherries, plums. And then we have a ground cover layer too, which is either grass or clover. We have about 100 nut trees, around 200 fruit trees, and almost 1,000 berry bushes planted. These perennial plants are very good at sequestering carbon. They're much more efficient than annual plants, and they can capture more sunlight. When they grow up tall in the summer and lose their leaves or get cut down and coppiced so they can grow back, it's actually carbon transformed from the atmosphere into the soil. So this biomass will compost and create thick black topsoil that will hold water better and feed our plants better. So the soil is the base of this whole project. We're really trying to boost the organic matter and get the life back in the soil. We need to look at systems that actually restore this degraded land that we have, because we're dealing with lifeless and sterile soil that we have to now work with. Our next generation has to turn that around, or else we're not going to have anything. I think this kind of project or this kind of agriculture could be a way to turn around a whole community, a whole island, and bring actually agricultural livelihoods to the community through nature connection and through observation, instead of through corporate brainwashing and being a drug addict to these chemical companies. I was inspired to do this project because it was an opportunity to put all the stuff I've been reading about for years into something a little larger scale. I'm looking at taking all these resources and knowledge and applying them to something that works here locally with the plants we have. And I'm really excited about that.